Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien. Lead! And Livingston have the lead! Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates. And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livy, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name's Ewan and today I'm joined by Angus, and he's managed to get down from his ivory tower via the job centre. Callum Brown's also joining us today. How we doing, lads?
Hey, how are we? Good. Good to be back.
All good, mate. All good.
Other than being awoken at this ungodly hour, I'm doing all right.
Ungodly, right? Sorry, we're recording at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? Now, this is honestly, listeners, I have two jobs, right? And I'm trying to get round someone who's unemployed and then a student. And I'm arranging my life around them. It's actually
I prefer graduate looking for work.
I prefer graduate going back to finish the job.
Anyway, right, we are here. We're recording. It's some sort of miracle. But anyway, as always, you can find this episode as well as all our other episodes on your preferred podcast streaming site. Just search for Talk Livy, so follow us or subscribe to ensure that you don't miss another episode.
We'll start the episode off by talking about our last 16 Premier Sports Cup tie as we welcome St Mirren in a repeat of last year's semi-final.
It's the return of What Does Your Fox In, as we all discuss the petty things that we despise in the world of football.
And last of all, we preview next Saturday's home game against Motherwell as a number of familiar faces make their return to Tony Macaroni Arena.
The Lions welcome Jim Goodwin's St Mirren to West Lothian as both teams battled out for a place in the quarterfinals. The two teams could not be separated after 120 minutes, and thankfully, for the second time this season, the Lions came out on top in a penalty shootout. A tense ending to the game. What do you guys think of it overall?
I think it was quite a good game of football. However, it was a bit stop-start for kind of large spells as well, just with the number of subs. And then apparently the St Mirren players and our players were just dropping like flies for large proportions of the game as well. But I think it was a decent enough game. Obviously, we'll go into more detail, but we saw a debut for Odin Bailey. He had a decent effort early on. And then Max has recovered well from the disaster, which was the mistakes against Aberdeen. And he's pulled off a great save from Greg Kiltie. Was genuinely just waiting on Kiltie hitting the net, to be honest. But Max has pulled off a really good save, and he's also pulled one off from Brophy as well later in the first half. I think him and Brophy looked about a good couple of yards offside. But anyway, Max has saved it, so it didn't count for anything. But we've managed to take the lead in the game. Great counter-attack, good play by Bailey to play Pitts in. Pitts has picked the right option, playing Forrest. Have to say, I thought Forrest had given the chance up by coming back inside, but he's actually used the defender to almost shape the ball round him and roll it into the far corner. It's almost a really typical Alan Forrest goal, that one, coming off the left-hand side, rolling it in the far corner. Really good finish, and we're 1-0 up at the break. And yeah, I think second half, we looked fairly comfortable. I don't think St Mirren were offering a great deal threat-wise, but I think we had a lot of counter-attacks where we just picked the wrong option, the wrong pass, or maybe try to take on a player too many, not getting a shot away quick enough, and then we'll go on to the goal that we conceded. I noticed at Ibrox we seem to be trying to play this offside trap every so often at dead balls, and I'm just not a fan of it. Personal opinion, just not a fan of it, because when it doesn't work, that's how bad it can look. and McCarthy's got all the time in the world, take a touch and then put it into, Stryjek's really got no chance from that distance, and they've managed to take the game to extra time. But yeah, I think again in extra time, I think we looked the team more likely to probably score. Oblai's had that header, the ghost goal. We'll go on to talk about. Bruni, you've probably got the best angle out of any of us for that one, where the commentary position is at Livi. Certainly looked over the line, but we had other efforts during the game as well. Oblai's had a free header at one point. Fitzwater's had a header over the bar as well during the game. Hamilton's had a header wide in extra time as well. So I think if there was any team in extra time that was going to win it, it would have been us. But back to penalties again, and Max has been proved to be the hero. And tell you what, Craig Sibbald must be glad. Davey even made a comment about Sibbs' penalty. You can tell what Sibbs is trying to do. He's playing that kind of gamble. He's waiting on the keeper going one way, but when the keeper doesn't dive and you do that, it does look bad. And it was bad. So let's just say, Craig, love the confidence in going up to take a pen, but maybe don't in future. The last two haven't been the best efforts, and I can't really slag a penalty because I had one saved at half time by Gary Malley once, funnily enough, against St Mirren back in the Championship. But Gary did have to dive for it. That's my one bonus I'll take from it. But yeah, I think we probably did edge the game, to be totally honest, and I think we did deserve to go through in the end. But it was a long slog, and the reward for all that is an away trip to Ibrox, which is absolutely fantastic. Easy route to the semi-final.
I totally agree with what you said there, Ewan. I thought, first of all, the midfield three for me was excellent. I know we're slagging Craig Sibbald, and rightly so, because it was a horrendous penalty. But I thought he was absolutely fantastic during the game. It's been said by a few people now, but it's one of the best individual performances I've seen for a good while at Livingston, certainly. Absolutely dictated play, dropping the shoulder everywhere. He was fantastic, as was Holton Pittman. Thought Scott Pittman was back to his best. He's maybe been off it the last few weeks, but he had those driving runs forward. He was in the faces of the opposition, and Jason Holt for me as well was a class act. I think he's going to be a really important player for us this season, just with his experience, his know-how about the division, things like that. Again, he for me controlled the game, and again, the amount of times he intercepted St Mirren on the break as well. As you say, it was poor for the goal. It is quite frustrating. I'm not really a fan of the offside trap either, I must say, but it did work. I think it was once, maybe twice in the game it worked. So it looks good when it works, but yeah,
I think the thing when
you egg on your face when it doesn't work.
I think the thing when you do that offside trap though is there's only so many times you get away with it, because teams then start to click on that you're going to do it and they'll just drop with you, which is and then you need to have everyone in total cohesion as well. It just takes one person to be half a yard off for it to basically to result in what happened on Saturday, which was St Mirren managing to basically get free rein in the 18-yard box to go and score. So it's just one of those, it's such a frustrating one. Yes, I can understand why you try it, but I think you can really only try it maybe once or twice in a game before you need to just try and defend your box a wee bit better.
No, it is very frustrating. It's also frustrating as well. I've not seen it back fully. I've not watched the full game highlights or anything. But at the time, I didn't think it was actually a free kick on the. I think it was on their left, on our right. Nicky Devlin, I think it was. I don't think it's a foul at all. It's Brophy, I believe, and he just goes down too easily. That's 3 or 4 times in that game they had free kicks from a similar position, and one of them was going to at least cause bother. We conceded free kicks in similar areas at Ibrox, which is a bit concerning. So, that's maybe a wee concern for me, just giving free kicks away in silly areas. It's almost like a corner a wee bit further in. Yeah, other than that, I'm fairly happy. Probably need to be a wee bit more clinical though, because if that's a league game, you're getting sucker punched at the last minute there to drop 2 points. Again, some people will say that's a negative. We're not taking the chances. Obviously that is, but I'd say I'd be a wee bit more concerned if we're not creating anything. For me, as Ewan said, better team for me by a mile for the 120 minutes. Angus, you said that as well in the intro. It's good all round for me. It's really positive, but just we got into the box so many times, got into dangerous areas so many times, and it's not as if we were afraid to pull the trigger or anything. It's just sometimes we couldn't get the ball out of our feet, or things like that. There was situations with Forrest and Anderson, both who I thought were excellent. By the way, Anderson's hold up was superb, and Forrest, again, he looks back to his best. Absolutely loves the League Cup, does that man? But it's a wee bit frustrating the fact that we missed those chances. Obviously, for me, you alluded to it there. I did think it was over the line at the time. I believe there was some St Mirren players as well after the game saying it was over. But I mean, I haven't seen it back. Unfortunately, we don't have that technology up here in Scotland. But yeah, there's much more to be positive about than negative about. It's a win in the cup. You could say it's on penalties. It's maybe a bit lucky, but I wouldn't say so. We've done more than enough to win that game in 90 minutes and then in 120 minutes as well. So, it's a good day all round, and it's probably now about taking that momentum into next week because, it's again another big game against Motherwell. I mentioned the fact that obviously that's the cup game. We've got a difficult quarter-final tie, but, if that's in the league, you're coming away very frustrated. In fact, we've pretty much dominated that game against St Mirren, which of course bodes well because they're a very good side. They've recruited well for me, but we just need to be more clinical, because if that happens in a league game and you're coming away without 3 points in a game that you've absolutely bossed, then you're going to be very, very frustrated.
A very much needed win for us. Obviously, we've not had the best of starts to the season. Obviously, the group stage wasn't exactly smooth sailing for us, and then 2 tough games against Rangers and Aberdeen. So hopefully this is a big kind of boost that we need, because we haven't really kind of got properly going. It's probably the first kind of proper high of the season. We've outdone a team at our level, and I think that's something that we should take a lot of positives from. All of this season we've kind of heard, and myself included, that St Mirren are going to be top 6 challengers, and we're going to be fighting around the bottom. You look at that game there, and if you think that there's a gap between both of these sides that makes one of them top 6 and one of them relegation candidates, I struggle to see it. I don't think St Mirren were up to much at all. I completely agree with you guys that we need to be a lot more clinical going forward. We do seem a lot of the times as if we're getting into good areas and nobody's kind of really taking responsibility. Nobody's kind of taking that risk to have a shot or to play that killer pass. It seems to be quite safe. Going back to the midfield, I think you're spot on talking about Pittman, Sibbald and Holt. The biggest compliment you can give them is struggle to even see that Jamie McGrath was actually playing in that game. A player who was one of the standouts in the league last season at all, didn't even have a sniff. Craig Sibbald it was remarkable watching him at times, just the way that he was keeping hold of the ball, just cruising past players and passing it excellent. Jason Holt as well. There's still people who kind of moan about Jason Holt with the time for passing that he makes, but he just recycles the ball so well, and is somebody who we really, really need that. But absolutely delighted to get through to the next round, and hopefully that victory, just like many others in the League Cups have in the past few seasons, can really kick us on. But as you guys say, we've got Rangers in the next round. How do you guys feel about
that? Easy route into the semi-finals, personally. Rangers Cup record shocking under Gerrard. It's a great opportunity. I can't wait for Max Stryjek to come up with a goal in extra time to win it as well. Like, it's the story, isn't it? But it's a difficult game. But alluding back to the game there, a couple of wee points. Obviously, you guys have touched on Sibs. Absolutely outstanding. Craig Sibbald, I genuinely really enjoyed watching Sibs on Saturday. As you said, Bruni, he just kept, I don't know how many times he sent a St Mirren player for a hot dog by just dropping his shoulder and then just creating 2-3 yards and gliding past them. The midfield three, as you say, just works so well. They complement each other so well. Pitts does everything, box to box. I think there was one where they went on the counter and Pitts was the one clearing it up, heading it back to Max. I think maybe first half. Made a huge recovery run from a corner. And as you say, Holt does a lot of the dark arts, I think, very well. Just spreading fouls about the park, breaking up the game a little bit, taking the sting out of it. And I think it's those sort of midfielders always seem to kind of go unnoticed a little bit. But I think I said this last year with Holt as well. I think he does a quiet job for the team. And it's very, very effective what he does. And as I say, I think we've got a really good midfield three that complement each other. But, we touched on it very early doors. We saw a debut for Odin Bailey, who's coming on loan from from Birmingham. In my opinion, maybe a wee bit of pressure on him, given who he's coming in for and Josh Millen. How did we think Odin settled in?
I thought he played well. It's a tough ask for him, obviously. I don't know what sort of pre-season he's had or anything, or if he's played in friendlies for Birmingham youth teams or whatever, but I thought he looked okay. I wouldn't say he was noticeably off the pace. Nearly scored pretty much early doors, 20 odd minutes in, cut inside well, just fired it wide. I think he had another one in the second half, which was just at the goalkeeper. But yeah, he looks decent. He looks like a tricky winger. He looks like he'll get fans off their seats. Maybe the only thing I would say, he looked maybe a wee bit lightweight at times. But again, that'll come with adapting to the physicality of Scottish football, just getting his body in there. And you know, sometimes players were, you know, he was bouncing off players at times. But no, on first showing, so I mean, he's not set the world alight or anything, but that's a difficult thing to do. But he's been fairly solid for me, and I'm looking forward to, you know, seeing what he can do in the future, because, as you said, Ewan, it's tough shoes to fill in Josh Mullen. Doesn't matter what your opinion is on that. Josh will be difficult to replace if you think he should have stayed, if you think he should have left. He is a cracking footballer, Josh Mullen, so certainly wish him all the best as well. But yeah, Odin Bailey, tough shoes to fill, but he's done all right. He's had a good start.
Yeah, fine enough debut. The only thing I'd kind of say is maybe it was kind of alarm bells were like kind of ringing for him that, you know, he's not going to get as much time up here. I think there's a couple of times where he's like on the ball in the corner and he wasn't expecting, you know, the defenders to keep on flying in at him. But again, that'll come with, you know, more game time and more, you know, kind of match sharpness and that. But yeah, completely fine. Yeah, he seemed to be, you know, an exciting enough player. Not too much to add to it. I don't think he was particularly amazing, but yeah, did enough to, you know, to kind of make me feel, you know, excited for seeing him in the future. I guess the other substitution debut that we should probably go on to talk about is Harrison, and I'll try my best to try and pronounce this. I think it's Panayiotou. Don't know if that's anywhere near that. Probably won't be the worst attempt at it, so I'm going to stick with it. Obviously, Ewan came on, but then also got substituted. What do you make of that?
Yeah, an interesting one to say the least. I think when he came on, to be honest, I know he was only on for 12 minutes, but I think he actually was contributing fine. I think he held the ball up. He linked the game fairly well at times. But I think the main stand was stunned into silence when the board went up. I think I almost thought Cheb had got the wrong numbers on the board, to be honest. That did take me by surprise. I know Davies obviously explained it was more a tactical thing. I think he was kind of humming and hawing about putting Shinnie on because he's coming back from an injury and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a strange one. It's going to take some good man management to kind of explain that situation to the lad, because I don't think he did a great deal wrong when he was on the park. But to kind of touch on Odin Bailey there, I know you guys were kind of maybe, yeah, it was an okay debut. I was quietly impressed with him. I think he liked getting on the ball. He was confident on the ball. He was shown for it quite a lot as well. He was obviously involved in the goal. It's him that creates the space for the opening for Pittman, little ball through. And, you know, he wasn't, we were just talking about maybe some of our midfielders maybe not taking responsibility and taking an effort at goal. Well, I think he showed that he's willing to go and just have a wee dig if it's on. You know, as you said, there was a couple of efforts in the game. He's tried to test the keeper, which I like. You know, I'm not against someone having a dig from 20, 25 yards if the opportunity is there. But I quite like the look of him. He's obviously very quick, tricky winger, as I say. He was confident getting on the ball. So he'll obviously have a fairly decent idea of what's expected up here, having played with Nicky Cadden last year at Forest Green Rovers as well. So Cads knows what it's like up at Livingston. So I think he might settle in fairly quickly. As you say, it's a different game up here compared to down south. It is a lot quicker than folk give it credit for. And I think give him, you know, 5-6 games, I think he'll start to impress, I think. But yeah, going back to that substitution, Bruni, what was your thoughts on it up in your ivory tower up in the corner there?
It was a weird one. Like, I was sort of looking around, scratching my head at it. I'm not. Again, I think Davies said it's tactical or something. I'm not sure. I'd initially thought he must be injured or something. I think we saw it though last season, maybe with a wee bit Matic. Poplatnik. I think that happened a few times.
Yeah,
he was
I think
maybe.
it was the Rangers 0-0 game.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I think from reading Davies' comments before about that one, it actually turned out that Poplatnik's heart rate was like, they were actually scared he was going to have a heart attack on the pitch. His heart rate was up at like 200 beats per minute, and he'd only been on the park for 10 minutes. So I think that was more a health and safety precaution that they took Poplatnik off. But
that was the only thing I could maybe compare it to. It's rare, isn't it? I mean, I know it's good that the manager wants to get, you know, as much as possible out of his players. Maybe he wasn't happy with how Harry played. I don't know. Again, I can't really comment on it as such without knowing too much. Maybe there was at times I think he'd gone on the right behind the striker, behind Jack Hamilton, and I think it was a few times where Conor McCarthy had driven out from defence. I think that was maybe the issue. Shinnie's obviously naturally a midfielder. I think Harrison's naturally a striker, so it was maybe that sort of sense of Shinnie's better positionally if we were trying to hold on to the game. That's the only thing. But yeah, personally, do you know what I mean? If I was him, I'd be fairly annoyed. You know, you've played 11 minutes on your debut. It's not ideal at all. Although I get in the same vein that if the manager's not happy, you're not actually doing your job. You know, like I don't watch training or anything. I don't know if he's, you know, he could be totally ignoring instructions. He could be totally going away from what the team's trying to do, and that's affecting how St Mirren come out with the ball, something like that. So it's a bit of a weird one. I do agree, but hopefully it doesn't cause an issue like the whole Robbo thing. Which, to be fair, I don't think it's like that at all. I think the Robbo thing was probably fair at the time, and it was a sub, but you know what I mean, it wasn't 10, 11 minutes like this was. But yeah, well, he looked okay in flashes though, from what I saw from him. Quite happy with how he played, and again, he's another one I'm quite looking forward to see. Hopefully, if he gets more than 11 minutes in the next game. But I just wanted to talk about the defence as well. Ayo and Fitzwater, for me, were a fairly solid partnership. You know, they both look like threats in the opposition box, and you know they dealt with crosses into our box very well. But for me, if Sibbald were saying he's man of the match, which I totally agree with, there has to be a special mention for Max Stryjek. Strength of character is unbelievable, isn't it? You know, to come back from that last week, I was maybe a wee bit. I think last season, to be fair, he probably would have been dropped, and I'm not sure what the opinions are on Bardon. We've not really seen much of him, but for Davy to give Max that sort of confidence in starting him, you know, he could have easily dropped him, and maybe would have been a bit harsh because it's one mistake, if you know what I mean. And if you're a goalkeeper, you make a mistake, it's 9 times out of 10 it's a goal. But yeah, to come back from that is very, very good, and to have the game that he did, not just the shootout, as you touched on. I don't know how long ago now, Ewan, but we were praising Max throughout the whole game. He denied Greg Kiltie. You know, I'd sort of resigned to the fact that was a goal. Kiltie had time took a touch, picked his spot, but Max was down well. Then there was another one-on-one with Eamon Brophy, and then the 2 penalties as well. We knew about his heroics against Wraith Rovers, which is actually not looking like a horrendous result given their performance against Aberdeen. But yeah, he was brilliant, and it's really fitting for him to come back and have that performance that he did after last week, and hopefully that's it put to bed, because I think he could be big for us. All the players have said that he seems to be a lot sharper in training. Maybe that helps with Daniel coming in and pushing him to be number one. But I'm looking forward to seeing Max this season. I think he'll win us a good few points.
I think, as you touched on, Bruni, it's the best way to bounce back, isn't it? He's the hero from last week, where he would have been the villain for the mistake. And I think Davey touched on it when he spoke to myself. He's talked about Max maybe being a tad unprofessional last year, and how he's looking after himself off the pitch and things like that. But he seems like a different animal this year, and it's the sort of performance. I think we touched on it last week, Angus, about would he drop Max and put Daniel in? I think he would have played Bardon this week, because it being a cup game, a bit like Sarkic a couple of seasons back when he came in for the cup tie against Rangers. I think he might have played him, but I think because of the mistake last week, it then looks like he's dropped him for the mistake a little bit. So I think he's shown good man management by keeping Max in between the sticks for this game and giving him an opportunity to bounce back straight away, which, he's done, saving 2 penalties and a couple of big saves during the game. So I think that decision was spot on to keep Max between the sticks because of what had happened the previous week. I think it was the right decision to do that in the end. Well, obviously we'll say that now because he saved 2 penalties and got us to the quarterfinals of the cup, won't we? But I think that was a good bit of man management. We've questioned maybe that substitution with Harry coming on and off, but I think that was an example of good man management there.
Yeah, I think the two instances show, kind of the two sides of Davy essentially, how he's going to basically handle this team. But yeah, full credit to Max. That's absolutely incredible. The performance. I mean, those saves that he was making, the one that was 1-on-1 with Brophy straight after we scored, that should be a goal all day. But
it's a howling miss by the Wolf, isn't it?
He's good as a
absolutely shocking. I've been teeing that one up for ages. It was shocking.
But for Stryjek, absolutely delighted for him because he would have got a fair amount of stick, not even just from our own fans, but it would have been plastered all over kind of Scottish football media and that the past week. So yeah, for him to come up, it's kind of written in the stars for him to right his wrongs so quickly. And yeah, hopefully this is really kicking on and having a superb season for us.
Just finally as well, 2 things. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about Nicky later on in the podcast. Obviously, he's signed a new deal. He's been given the captain's armband, which is brilliant. But first of all, Keegan Jacobs. What more can we say? Brilliant to have Keegs back.
I'm not going to lie, I had a bit of a fanny flutter when I saw that Keegs was on the bench. I was genuinely quite excited. When I saw Keegs was back, I felt like a wee kid at Christmas. I was like, "Oh, he's back!" It was just,
a wee Keegs.
Exactly, that's what it was like. I was absolutely buzzing to see Keegan back involved. It's been 17 months and Angus, we spoke to Keegan, just at the tail end of last season, and it's obviously been an incredibly frustrating period for him because this injury has been so difficult to manage. There's been a lot of kind of trial and error with his recovery. So to see Keegan back involved, albeit left wing back, which I'm sure Keegan wasn't maybe expecting, but he was back in, and it was great to see him back. Obviously, he missed a penalty, but that's forgotten about already. But yeah, absolutely delighted to see Keegs back on the pitch in a Livi jersey. It's been a long time coming, and I put it on our social media. I genuinely think that was the best thing about Saturday, was seeing Keegs back playing.
I think it's really funny that throughout the whole summer, all we've done is sign fucking left backs, and then suddenly we've got nobody to play left back when Jackson Longridge comes off. How has that happened? But other than that, absolutely great to see Keegan back. Absolute fans' favourite. You know what? Fair play to him for stepping up to take a penalty. 18 months out, and straight away he's one of the first ones to put his hand up and want to take one. Of course, it didn't go as planned, but in the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, delighted to see him back, and yeah, gives us another good option in the middle of the park. A good tenacious midfielder. If he gets the option back there, maybe he's going to be a left wing back from now on. Now we know how Davey likes to put players in certain different other areas, so we just have to wait to see for that one. But Cam, as you were alluding to as well, we may as well just go on and talk about Nicky Devlin, obviously our top Livi sponsored player. Great to see him, commit to the club, and I think that just says a lot of good things about the club. In all honesty, that he's willing to make that commitment quite early on in this season. We've kind of obviously talked about how this season might be a difficult one for us, and we could end up in a fight at the bottom table, near the bottom of the table, or we could be pushing for top 6 again. For him to be like, yeah, this is my club, I'm going to stay here for at least another basically 2 seasons now. His contract will end at the end of the 22-23 campaign. Absolutely buzzing to see that, and for him to be our club captain, it's probably the main option, and we've already seen him have the armband. But yeah, absolutely delighted to have him on board, and can't wait to see more great performances from him.
Yeah, I touched on it. I tweeted something yesterday, just the fact that I was surprised that we've managed to hold on to Nicky. Obviously, he had that extension that we could have triggered, which we did. The extra 1 year deal, but he signed another year on top of that, which is excellent. I'm surprised we held on to him. I'm delighted that he's stayed. I can't speak highly enough of Nicky. He's a cracking guy and a cracking footballer as well. For me, our most consistent performer last year, as backed up with all those awards. We choose our players our sponsor players very well here on Top Livi. But, you know, it's a fantastic piece of news, and it just rounded off a great weekend, you know, with the win, with getting through, and Nicky's new deal. Hopefully he can now kick on after, I think he had a tough pre-season with, I think, a rib injury, I think it was. So good to see that he's back again. I felt he was back to his best on Saturday there, driving forward from right back. So yeah, it's fantastic news.
We talk about him getting the armband as well. I think it's the big thing for me. Obviously, it's great to see that he's signed an extension. But I think looking back to a few of Nicky's kind of first games at the club, maybe a game, like there was a pre-season game over at Alloa, and I think the cup tie over at Forfar where you're a bit closer to the pitch, and he's a captain. He is just he's a leader on the pitch, and it's absolutely no surprise that he's been given the armband for this season, and I think it's the right choice by Davey and the coaching staff to give him that. And I think he'll be a successful captain for Livingston Football Club as well, and all the better that we're sponsoring him for another season. Hey, we might be able to sponsor him next season as well. So, no, buzzing for that. Buzzing to see Nicky staying at the club longer term, and obviously getting the armband as well is a really fitting way, as you say, Bruni, to finish up the weekend.
In honour of one of the Lions' most Marmite players, Liam Fox, it is the return of What Does Your Fox In? So that is where we will discuss our gripes within the modern game. Ewan, we'll come to you first. What does your fox in?
Like, I'm going to be totally honest, mine's really, really petty this week, but it does do my fox in, right? So, you know, at Livi, we've had all the Jacobs brothers playing at one point. However, there was no real, you know, when all four of them were involved, there was no squad numbers, etc., names on the back of the top, right? But I'll use, as an example to build in, I'll use like the Neville brothers at Man United as an example, okay? So you'd have G Neville on the back of his top and F Neville, right? P Neville, sorry. F Neville. I don't care. Right?
F-I-L-L.
Oh, I've had a mare. That's getting edited. Yeah, so I'll use the Neville brothers as an example, right? So G Neville and P Neville, right? That's to differentiate the two brothers. However, I noticed this more during lockdown because I was watching more games on the TV, right? But, you know, and Man United announced Varane the other day, and he's got R Varane on the back of his top. There's no other Varane at Man United. Why do you need that? G Jesus. We're not confusing you with Jesus Christ. We know you're the only Jesus that plays at Man City, right?
Bruno Fernandes. B
Yeah,
Fernandes.
Bruno Fernandes has it as well. B Fernandes. You don't need it. Why do you need the B? Right?
Why am I arguing your argument for you?
Keep going, Bruni, keep going. Right? I know it is incredibly petty, but it really does my fox in, guys, right? I can imagine wee Cheb going bonkers, right? If a player came in at Livi and goes, I want my first initial on the top. I can just imagine wee Cheb's reaction, right? And I would pay to see it, right? Because Cheb is a character. But I'd love to see that reaction. But I get it. It's really petty, and I'm sure nobody else gets frustrated by this, right? But there's so many examples down south. The boy Ceballos that was playing at Arsenal, D Ceballos. You're the only Ceballos at the club. Why do you need the first initial? I was about to say nobody cares, but I fucking care, right? And it as I say, it really does my fox in. It's incredibly petty. I understand that, but you know, I don't come on does your fox in to win votes, right? I just come on to vent frustration at tiny little things in football that do my fox in, and that's what I'm doing today.
Tell you what, Ewan, it's not bad at all. I think that'll be a tough act to follow. I'm going to pass over to Angus because I'm still trying to think because I didn't really prepare for this section. But hi, Angus, what you saying to follow that? What does your fox in?
Well, whenever we do this, I try and think of something that's kind of happened recently. And there was something that happened on Saturday that kind of does my head in a wee bit. And it's basically when a team gets a player injured and they look over at the subs bench and they're like, right, you're coming on now. And then the guy's got to go through a 10-minute wardrobe routine to then, you know, come onto the pitch. Conor McCarthy had to, you know, first of all, he had to take off about 4 layers. He had to put on a sports bra, fitted it with like a wee a wee random device that, you know, would track, like, he's playing fucking centre half. I could tell you how fucking much he's walking about and stuff like that. He had to put on about 3 other layers back on. And like all of this, he's a fucking centre half. Why is he so fucking flashy and all of that? Why has he got all this fucking shit to worry about? You're just going to go on there and just header a ball, essentially. But does my head in so much. And as you see, like, also we talked about it in the St Mirren game, like the review there, about how it was like stop-start. Charles Dunn went down the first time. That should have been like, right, go and get ready. He came down the second time, still isn't prepared to go on the pitch, took another 5 minutes. It's just like, hurry up, just get on. Like, I don't understand why that's a thing now in football where, you know, nobody's prepared. Nobody's prepared for the worst. But aye, quite a small thing, but does my head in as well. Cannot be bored with that at all.
You'll beat me, I think, with that. That one, that's a belter, I think. Like, why do subs not wear the top? Like, I don't understand that. Why do they come off the bench and they've not got the top on, like, all the time? I don't understand that. What difference does it make? I genuinely don't understand that. I can never understand when somebody's putting sock ties on and tape and stuff like that when they've been told, oh, you're coming on. Surely you'd have that ready to go. You should be ready for any eventuality. I actually agree with you, Angus. Yeah.
Oh, Callum, have you got one yet?
So on Saturday we face Motherwell. Let's move on. I don't know. It's tricky, isn't it, to follow those two. I think I'll be humble third place, but I'm not sure if it's been covered or anything before. But what really annoys me, what really does my fox in, is when I think they're called draft excluders. When, you know, there's a wall in the game and a free kick, and, you know, the wall's 10 yards back, but there's somebody lying behind the wall. What are you doing?
See, when you said draft excluders, I thought you were talking about like building houses and stuff like that. Man.
I thought you were talking about the war
draft excluders. No, it's when somebody they're lying behind the wall trying to block. If the wall jumps, for example, and the ball goes underneath, like as if Lionel Messi's playing every game. There's no point. It's wasting a defender. I don't get it at all. I genuinely don't get what the thinking is behind it. Fair enough, you're maybe trying to block that, you know, somebody putting a worldie underneath the wall if somebody jumps. But if they do that, take your hat off to them and say, well done. How many times could you list me 5 off the top of your head examples of somebody hitting a free kick under the wall that's not Lionel Messi? No, you can't. Just lying on the wall with the back as well, with the back to the ball. They can't see what's coming. Get up, get a grip. Honestly,
I will say that I do think it is quite funny, just the visual image of just seeing, you know, all these players and then just one guy just on the deck. I do think that brings me a small bit of like happiness during a game. Just some wee idiot, some grown man is just lying on the ground. Like, I would expect that kind of behaviour up at the 3G if we're playing like Cuppy or something, in all honesty. Yeah. Never mind, you know, in the Premier League, but aye, it is quite a silly one. You know, it stopped people trying to at least go underneath the wall. But yeah, it is a bizarre one. Nobody's exactly going to be doing that up here when Josh Mullins is going up for a free kick or anything. That is a
Josh Mullins got the ability to stick it over the wall and round the wall. He doesn't need to go under.
If I was playing, I'd purposely boot the ball as hard as I could to try and get it underneath the wall, just to hit the guy to get him out of the way. It's pathetic.
To be fair, Bruni, I've also seen you kick a ball and there's no chance you could hit that target.
No, I'll aim for the left and I'll go to the right. It's okay.
I'm
world class. I'm not having that slander. He's had a penalty saved off Gary Malley, so weashed.
The best way I can describe Bruni's putting technique for foot golf was club foot. You know, absolute zero finesse about it. Putt goes about 20 yards past the hole every time. But anyway,
my long game is fantastic though.
That's debatable as well. But that's for another day. But look, there's method in the madness with it, isn't there? You know, as Angus has said, it's kind of done away with folk trying to do it. I kind of agree with you to the extent as well, Bruni. Like, how many times has it happened that you need to prepare for it? I could maybe understand if it's a particular player that has tried it 2 or 3 times, and you maybe go, right, okay, just as a precaution in case he has a crack at it. Like, I can understand that, but if like you've never ever seen this player, you've seen him hit dead balls, like, I don't know, I'm just trying to use someone in Scotland, for example, playing in Scotland. Like Stevie Mallon was very good at dead balls. but not once did I ever see him try and put one under the wall. So you wouldn't really prepare for it. So like, I kind of get both arguments, but just to summarise on the old does your fox in. So my one is players having their first initial on their shirt when they're the only player with that particular surname in their team. Angus, what was yours?
Players not being ready basically to come onto the pitch and having to go through a whole wardrobe change before they do so.
Bruni, just to summarise finally, your one there.
We idiots lying behind the wall trying to block a low shot.
I'll try and narrow that down for the characters on the Twitter poll. But guys, we'll get that up during the week for you guys to vote on. As I say, I'm not expecting my one to win. Mine's incredibly petty. I think the other two have one of you guys has got this in the bag personally. But yeah, get involved and let us know your thoughts on it as well.
I don't know if you're wanting to keep this in, right? But I've pictured the dream scenario for all three of us here, right? There's a substitution. One of our players is down, right? Angus, this fits your one, obviously. They take about 4 or 5 minutes to get on. They're doing their tape. They're putting their training bra on. They come on. They put their top on. They've got the first letter of their first name and their last name on the back, and it's like a weird name. It's like not a common name.
F Neville.
Yeah, F Neville or somebody, or yeah, something like that. There's nobody else in the team with the same surname as them, but they've got their first initial, and they come on. So they've done both of these, and they come on, and it's a free kick in this situation, which they've come on for. And you think, oh, they're going to go stand in the wall. That's fine. Bit of height on. Maybe it's a defender come off injured, and they go behind the wall and they lie down behind the wall, and they try and block the free kick. That would break this podcast, I think. All three of those happening.
Next Saturday, we'll look to pick up our first points of the season as Graham Alexander's Motherwell visit Almondvale. Coming off the back of a much-needed win in the Cup. How are we feeling about this one, guys?
It's quite an interesting one, to be fair, because I think Motherwell are kind of very similar to us in a lot of ways in terms of how their season started. I don't think their their Premier Sports Cup group stages, I don't think they had amazing performances in that. They've had a couple of tough games to begin the season with. They were at home to Hibs and they were away to St Johnstone, but then they also just lost there to Dundee. So, yeah, I'm not really exactly sure what to expect from Motherwell yet. It feels to be, very much the same Motherwell as last season, where, there's certain weeks where, they look to be a team who's kind of on the up, but then you could also catch them on a week where, they're kind of hopeless, in all honesty. They've got kind of like a strange balance to their squad as well. Obviously, there's a lot of players who we're familiar with. Liam Kelly was obviously captain last weekend for them, and that 1-0 loss to Dundee. So it'll be good to see him back. But based on his performances, it probably won't be something that we'll be looking forward to playing against, because he's been on great form since going back to Motherwell. But I don't think that Motherwell is a team who we should necessarily be fearing. Obviously we've had a couple of decent performances in the last week or so. Yeah, I think we should go into this fairly confident coming off the back of that victory, and hopefully we'll get the 3 points from this and get our first points of the league campaign.
They've been a wee bit of a bogey team for us, haven't they, since we've come up? I think I've just had a look there. I think we've won two from the 10 meetings since we were promoted. That's in the league, but and I think Motherwell five wins, I believe. So yeah, it's not great numbers, although both of our wins have come at home against them. So again, that could be a positive. But I think they may have the striker Van Veen. He missed Saturday's game there against Dundee. I watched their game against Hibernian, and I thought he looked fantastic. He looked a great addition to Scottish football. Sort of hold up player, target man, was just absolutely bodying everybody. Porteous, Hanlon, Paul McGinn, people like that. He was fantastic. So if he's fit, he would trouble us, I think, and bring the other attacking players into play, the likes of Woolery, Stevie Lawless, Tony Watt, guys like that. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a weird one. They're probably, as Angus kind of touched on, they're probably still trying to find an identity under Graham Alexander. They've not been consistent at all since he took over. he did a good job last season. You could say, he took over from Stephen Robinson, and he ended up steering them to the comfortable safety. Even when he took over, I thought that they would be safe. So he's not worked a miracle as such, but he's done okay though. He's done well. I think they're just struggling for consistency, struggling for form, and I think with both teams' results on Saturday, we probably have the edge. We have that momentum, as I touched on about the St Mirren game. It's our first real proper positive result of the season. Of course, we won a few in the Premier Sports Cup group stage, but that's our first proper one that we've celebrated massively against St Mirren there. And obviously they've lost at Dundee. They've only got a point from their first two league games as well, against Hibs, where they shipped 3 goals, and a point as well at St Johnstone, which is a good point, but they're not exactly setting the world alight. So I don't think we have a lot to fear. And I think especially if the boy Van Veen's not playing, then I think we'll be fairly comfortable, hopefully, in the game. I just hope that this record against Motherwell can sort of improve. But in the home meetings between us and Motherwell, we've pretty much been the better team every time, probably barring the 2-0 last season. But with home fans back in, hopefully it's a different story.
Yeah, I think Motherwell kind of team in transition as well. Touched on this on previous podcasts, the kind of new era vibe at a lot of clubs, and I think Motherwell, albeit Alexander came in kind of midway through last season, but there's been, I think it was 20 odd players left Motherwell in the summer, and they've lost some big players in the likes of Declan Gallagher, Alan Campbell, Devante Cole. They've all moved on. So kind of spine of their team a little bit, all moved on. And I agree with you, Brady. I watched them against Hibs, was really impressed with them actually. Boy Van Veen, as you mentioned, was very good. Slattery, I think it is, in the middle of the park, they brought in from Southampton as well. Was quite impressed with him. But I look at their centre-half pairing, Mugabe and Lamy, and obviously we know Ricky fairly well, a couple of years at Livi, fairly reliable, played a number of positions, but I think, there's mistakes in Ricky, you can get at him. I think Bruce could get him for pace. Been really impressed with Bruce Anderson in our recent games, certainly in the league and the cup game there as well. So yeah, I think they've had a massive turnover players wise, and they've been playing a 4-3-3 kind of similar to ourselves. I think I was reading the boy that does the Viva Motherwell blog, and he was talking about how there was a wee bit of a change in shape when they were playing St Johnstone. They had Lawless almost playing as a number 10, and it started to cause a lot of problems. So might be interesting to see if they do anything with that. Obviously, we know Steve very well after a couple of years at Livi as well. But I agree with you, Bruni. We've got a really mixed bag record against Motherwell. Sometimes we are absolute world beaters against them. If you go back to that 1-0 game where Taylor Sinclair scored, we were unplayable that day. But then some of the games we've had at Fir Park, we've been absolutely horrific in spells in the games. And yeah, it's a funny one to call. But I think if you look at our opening league fixtures, this is a big one for us in terms of trying to get points on the board early doors, because we've got Hibs the following week. I think we've got Celtic the week after that, and then it's Dundee. You're looking at Hibs away, Celtic at home. Going to be difficult to pick points up in that. So I think this game's quite a biggie to try and get us off and running for the season in the league.
Yeah, so obviously looking to continue on from last weekend's victory over St Mirren. Is there anything you guys would change to the team? Obviously, we've kind of praised most of the players in that starting 11, in all honesty. Obviously, Jackson Longridge came off with, it looked like, an injury. Is that the only concern that we probably have going into this game? I know obviously it's a wee bit early to be kind of talking about that, as good week away the game is still. But yeah, is there any kind of changes, or we just want to see pretty much the exact same from our lineup?
I think it depends a bit on who's available, doesn't it? I think there was no Penrice on the bench, not quite sure what's happening with that. No Williamson on the bench either. No Adam Lewis, no Montano. So there's probably players that could still come into the squad. I don't think they would come in and start though. So to be honest, if everyone's available and fit that started the game at the weekend, I personally don't see many changes to it. Because as you say, I think we looked really good against St Mirren, and I think everyone contributed towards the result in the end. So for me, I wouldn't be tweaking too much. I've said it a couple of times, I'd really like to see Montano get a run out if he is available. I think there's a real player in there that could be a big contributor for us this season. But as I say, I don't see him coming in and starting the game at all. I think Alan Forrest has had a good couple of games, Aberdeen and St Mirren, and I think Bailey did enough to warrant another run out from the start as well. So yeah, I don't think there'll be many changes.
It's difficult to change that team, isn't it? You know what? It's technically not a win, if you know what I mean. It's not a win in 90 minutes or after extra time, but you know, it is a victory on penalties. We were the dominant side, so it's hard to change sort of a winning team. You know, if it's not broken, don't try and fix it type thing. Maybe Andrew Shinnie, I think maybe for that a wee bit of experience, you could argue him coming in. I don't know who for though. Probably if you're looking at that, Odin Bailey maybe. But again, that would probably be harsh because I thought he played quite well. But you know, maybe depending on how the game's going, he could be good off the bench in terms of fresh. He looks like he's got a bit of pace, trickery. If we're trying to break Motherwell down at a point off the bench, he could be good. But the midfield three for me has got to start as we touched on. You know, throughout the whole review of the St Mirren game, midfield three were excellent. Back four and goalkeeper again, I wouldn't change. You know, where you've mentioned it for a good few seasons now, Ewan. You know, the fact that we need to have that settled back four or back five, whatever we play. Because a few times, you know, last season as well, you know, I know it wasn't apparent in the run because Max Stryk pretty much played every game in that 14-game unbeaten run. But, you know, if we changed our goalkeeper quite a bit last season, and I think that maybe disrupted the defence. You know, we also, you know, Fitzwater was a wee bit hit and miss in terms of injuries. Guthrie missed a few through injury as well. So, you know, if we try and keep that back four consistent throughout the majority of the season, then I think that, you know, they'll begin to do well together and things like that. But yeah, you know, I spoke about it last week, or I think it was maybe the week before. But you look at the guys that aren't even in the squad there. I think we've got a very, very good squad. And once everybody's fit, I think Davey will struggle to maybe pick an 18-man squad. As you mentioned there, like Penrice, Ben Williamson, Adam Lewis, Montano, you know, guys like that. Don't want to leave anyone out. But you know, just off the top of my head, those are names that we're missing. Tom Parks as well, maybe still to come back in. So, you know, not sure what the script is in terms of injuries with all of them. Jack McMillan and Jace Cabia obviously have injured too, but they're more long term, I'm led to believe. So it's looking all good for me. I think the squad looks really, really strong, and I'm looking forward to hopefully getting 3 points against Motherwell. I think we're good enough, but in terms of the team, I wouldn't change too much whatsoever. That midfield three will be absolutely key to any success we have in this game and going forward though.
Yeah, so basically covered most of the aspects of the game that we can kind of expect and, you know, what we'd like to see. We may as well just get straight down to predictions. So Ewan, we'll come to you first. What is your prediction for our home tie against Motherwell?
I think we've gained a bit of confidence from the performance, certainly against Aberdeen, and then I think that result against St Mirren, getting it over the line, getting it done in penalties, will give us a big boost in confidence as well. I'm going for a win. I'm going for a home win. I'm going to go, but I think there's going to be both teams to score, so I'm going to go 2-1 to Livi.
Callum, are you in similar vein of thought, or?
Yeah, I think we'll win, mate. I think we'll win. I was going to go 2-1 as well, but I'm going to go a wee bit different. I'm going to go 1-0. I think it'll be a stuffy 1-0. I think I'd like to see us put more chances away, but I think it'll be maybe a similar story in the fact that we'll miss a couple and we'll have to hang on late. You know, I think a clean sheet is imperative, obviously. You know, we haven't had one yet, apart from the game against Brecon and Wraith Rovers, of course. So, you know, hopefully that gives the defence a bit of confidence. But I'll go 1-0 and Bruce Anderson to score for me. He's been excellent, and I think he'll score. And
Angus, what are you going for? You're the face of negativity of Top Livi normally now. So since Andrew Semple's left, what are you going for next Saturday?
I mean, I was going to go for a victory there, but Callum just stole my prediction. Should I just stick with it?
You're allowed to go for the same scoreline. There's no rules against it.
Aye, but that's just kind of boring, isn't it? But I'll be a wee bit different, and you know, I'll play up to the negativity, and I'll go for a 1-1 draw. I've kind of mentioned that, you know, I don't feel like there's going to be too much to like separate the sides, but you know, we'll go for a 1-1 draw. Wouldn't be a terrible result, but you know, hopefully we can defend a wee bit better than we did at set pieces in the last couple of games, and hopefully I'm wrong.
let's hope we can get off the mark in the Premiership and get points on the board going into what is, as we mentioned, a tough run of fixtures.
So that's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks very much again to every single one of you for tuning in, week out. If you can, we would absolutely love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. All that is very much appreciated. If you want to slag us off as well, feel free.
Please don't slag us off. We're low in confidence as it is, But as Callum said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Search Talk Livi to find us. You'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in. Let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team. Come on, Livi!
A love will never die. West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Amberville. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Amberville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the